Hey, good evening. We're here to do your youth Sunday school lesson. Man, I'll have to forgot all that right there. But before we start, hey, guess what? We got a new sponsor. Yes, that's right. Skeeter's Outhouses.
Yes.
That's right. Portable outhouses. If you need one, call Skeeter. He's just down there by the river in the van. But you know what he does that makes them so special? He pimps them out. He's got a disco outhouse. He's got a, I forgot it. What's that movie that got a Z on his forehead? And Harry Potter theme. There you go. He's got Disney themes. So if you're having a big old party and all that, just give Skeeter a call. He's in the van down by the river if you need an outhouse. All right? I'm going to turn it over to Carrie.
I don't know if you saw their latest catalog they sent out, but
Skeeters?
yes.
Okay.
They do have feature for the month is that country farmhouse.
Country
look,
farmhouse.
with a lot of burlap and stuff like that.
You can go to Target and get one of them there dresses that they sell now, the plain
Yes.
Jane.
Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah, and you can get you a pinch for it.
So
and
if you
just
want
make a
that
good
kind
old
of theme
picture.
party for March, those are on special
That's
this
right,
month. I
that's
noticed
right.
that. All right, we are going to be in the book of Genesis today.
Ooh, that's
The very first chapter.
That's right.
Do you know what the word Genesis means?
Creation. Is that wrong?
Yeah, I guess, sort of.
Oh, I don't know. I
It
was just
says
guessing.
the beginning. Genesis is beginning.
Oh, beginning. Okay, all right, okay.
Although it is talking about creation.
It is.
It is speaking of that. Genesis records the origin of where we came from.
It does.
Adam and Eve.
It does.
That's where we started.
That's where it all fell apart.
That's where the first sin happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rise of human civilization, humanization. That's a new word. It's in
Okay.
here.
All right.
Y'all look in y'all's lesson, y'all be able to find that new word.
Is that in Webster's dictionary there?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I'm just checking.
So, Genesis provides the context of God's covenant with his people through Abraham. It is widely accepted that Abraham wrote the book of Genesis. So, I read that in here somewhere. So, if that's not right, then take it up with this Lifeway book. So, when we want to communicate to an audience, what's the three things? If you want to communicate to the audience, what are some things that you think about? Like when you are thinking about the audience that we're speaking to, we have to do three things.
We have to make eye contact, we have to speak clearly, and we have to speak semi-loudly.
Semi-loudly, yes. Something else, if you're going to talk about a subject matter, we need to talk about something they're familiar with.
Correct.
So we are speaking to students.
Okay?
So we need to talk about things and relate things that they're familiar with.
All right.
If all we ever do is talk about the greatest decade ever, the 80s, they're not going to know that much about it.
They're not,
which is
no.
very sad because
is.
it was the greatest decade along with the 90s. What do we need to tell them is one other thing we need to focus on.
That's true.
We're here to tell them about Jesus.
Jesus.
How do we bridge the gap between these two? What they're familiar with versus what we're wanting to talk about. So, Moses, I'm sorry, I said Abraham wrote the book of Genesis. I am so wrong. That would be Moses. Moses probably wrote it. So when we are in the book of Genesis and the people are reading it, the first recollection of the people reading it is probably when the children of Israel were wandering around in the desert, just been freed from slavery. And that is probably when they get to read it the first time, is when they are in this wandering stage. They knew things about God because it had been passed down from their parents from generation to generation. And the Israelites were surrounded in this time. They were surrounded by a bunch of, probably, if you compare it to the day's time, more civilized people. They were surrounded by established civilizations. Don't you agree the Egyptians were probably pretty civilized?
They were, yes.
The Canaanites were also civilized, and the Hittites, although I'm not very familiar with what they brought to the table, but according to our lesson, they were civilized. These groups were more civilized and I imagine more advanced than the Israelites would have been at this time. And their views about gods were different than the Israelites. They had different gods, and they had, some of them might have thought the word world was birthed out of a cosmic egg. You ever heard about that?
I believe, yes, I have.
Or maybe in Mesopotamia, the belief was something different. Maybe a spaghetti god. You ever heard about that? The spaghetti monster? Look it up.
Look it up.
Go on the Google
And Google's got it.
and study about that. There are people that believe in that.
Okay then, all righty.
And then we've got them who believes that people are created from the carcasses of deceased gods. I don't know about that.
Nah, I don't want to be that.
I don't want to be that either. But, so then that takes us back to Genesis. The Israelites are actually reading a story and something that, because it's a whole different account, Genesis 1. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It's almost as if the writer was saying, as inspired by the Holy Spirit, listen, I know you're hearing all kinds of confusing things from all kinds of people, and I want to tell you really what's going on. So, if you'll read verses 1 through 5,
Okay.
we can hear about the very beginning.
All right. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness covered the surface of the watery depths, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. Then God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. There was an evening, and then there was a morning. One day.
One day. So in the beginning, that tells us how the earth was formed. If we think about it, the biblical worldview is unique. Not only in that we know who created everything, but that we can also have a personal relationship with the Creator. Most of these other gods that you read about or study about, you can't have a personal relationship with a golden calf or a cosmic egg or a spaghetti monster. I don't imagine he's probably lovable. So, God created people to live in relationship with Him from the very beginning. He created people to live in a relationship, and sin messed that relationship up. Jesus, he created people to be in a relationship with Him, and through Jesus, He invites us into this same personal relationship today. So, if we will get to, we're going to skip from the verses 5, and we're going to move on into the lesson of 26 and 27.
Then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. They will rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the livestock, the whole earth, and the creatures that crawl on the earth. So God created man in His own image. He created him in the image of God. He created them male and female.
Perhaps you are familiar with the idea of religious icons. One that may come to our minds quickly of an icon is the cross. The cross means something different to a lot of people. They cause us to think about Jesus' death, His burial, His resurrection, what that means to us. But unfortunately, sometimes people tend to worship an icon or what it represents. And that could be anything. Many of us use icons every day and we don't even know it. One of the things when we think about icons, what's something that's all on our phones? Apps. They're all represented by little icons.
They are.
And So if you tap on that, a little icon, it takes you somewhere, the application launches, and that is, an icon is an image that points you to something. So when we think of a religious icon, we think of the cross. It should point us directly to Jesus. It says in here that we were made in the image of God. It actually says, let us make. What from last week does that tell us about us? Who is us?
We are God.
Let us make man in our image. That takes us back to the Trinity.
It is.
So Jesus was there in the beginning.
He was.
So was the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So to be made in the image of God means we were made with a special purpose, which is different from the rest of creation. Think about the other part of creation. You got dogs, you got cats,
Cows,
trees,
birds,
plants,
clouds,
flowers,
lakes, rivers, oceans,
tacos,
burritos, pizza.
shrimp and grits. So good from Gabe's. Shout out to Gabe's Villarica. I'll take a gift card for that shout out. Anyway, there's all kinds of, I don't even know what we're talking about now. I just think about shrimp and grits at Gabe's and my mind is just completely gone.
Creation. We're talking about creation.
Creation. But as humans, we are a unique creation.
We are.
The ways that we can understand right from wrong make us different, but the most unique things about us is that we were created to reflect God's image and nature. Now, I will have to be honest with you. I don't always reflect His image and nature.
You're not the only one.
And sometimes we fail to project God's image and nature. Something's wrong in this room. We have all been tongue-tied.
Struggling tonight.
Something's going on. So we were put here to be His representatives. And when you have a representative, what do they do? What does a representative do for you? I ain't talking about telemarketers or customer service.
They're supposed to promote the good things that you do.
They are supposed to make it to where you make whoever you're representing everybody wants to meet who you're representing.
That's true.
And so as His image bearers, we were created to rule over animals and the earth. And the word rule in this means to subjugate, to have dominion, or to reign. Humans made in God's image are capable of thinking, discerning, and making choices as God's ruling representatives, governing the earth in His place. So we should be caring for His creation, including His creatures. We should seek to use, not abuse or misuse what God has provided for us. When the world looks at us, they shouldn't simply see just a living being. They should see God in us. So if you'll read for us 28:31, we will wrap up what this lesson is telling us for this week.
We're just doing tonight for a whole month?
Yeah, apparently.
Yes. All right.
Apparently.
God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. Rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and every creature that crawls on the earth. God also said, look, I have given you every seed-bearing plant on the surface of the entire earth, and every tree whose fruit contains seed. This will be food for you, for all the wildlife of the earth, for every bird of the sky, and for every creature that crawls on the earth, everything having the breath of life in it. I have given every green plant for food, and it was so. God saw all that He had made, and it was very good indeed. Evening came, and then morning, the sixth day.
So as beings created in His image, God didn't just place us in an elevated position to just sit and just bask in all the glory. He gave us the responsibility of overseeing creation and living in the ways that honor Him. He gave us 3 specific tasks. He told us to be fruitful and fill the earth.
Correct.
He told us to subdue the earth and then enjoy the goodness of everything that God created. He's talking about in there green plants for food. That includes Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts gets a bad rap in this church sometimes. I ain't naming no names. I personally love Brussels sprouts. They're wonderful. God created them. It says so right here.
He created them, but they ain't wonderful.
They are wonderful, wonderful Brussels sprouts. So I just wanted to throw that in there because I saw that green plant. Although it's very good, and it gets a bad rap sometimes.
It said plant, not cabbage.
It's wonderful and green.
It did well.
So it's important for us to understand that these commands didn't go away just because we sinned. Sin enters. These commands did not stop because we messed up. We still exercise responsibility over the earth, but after sin, it's going to require hard work. The work can be exhausting, but it can also be very rewarding. God blesses us as we take charge of what He's given us, and when we do it in a way that honors Him, He will bless us. So when the world looks at us, now this is just what the lesson, if you're asking, Carrie, what does this lesson mean this week? Basically, to wrap it up, it says when the world looks at us, they shouldn't see people simply living for themselves. Instead, we should be known for carrying out the highest calling imaginable, displaying the image of God who made us. So, you got any questions?
I do not.
All right. Well, until next week, we will see y'all later.